During the events of Project Moon's universe, we see a lot of characters change. They undergo both physical and mental transformations in accordance with their various character arcs. All standard fare, we expect that from our characters. What's unusual in Project Moon, however, is that their physical state reflects their mental state. A big part of the first game's goal was to break the shell. That's right, Carmen was always this way, don't at me. LobCorp forced the people of the city into a transitional state. They're all cocoons waiting to hatch, and none more than today's subject, Philip. Philip, why the hell does that name have one L? It doesn't matter. Philip first appears in Library of Ruina, where he begins as a fairly minor character. I mean, look at that turtleneck. Who even wears one of those? Pathetic and weak and small and useless and uncool, he watches on as his friends die to allow him to escape, an event that informs, maybe even decides, the rest of his arc. When he returns with the Wedge office, he's determined to fight and die with them to put some of his emotions to rest, only for that choice to be stolen from him once again, as he's teleported out on his defeat. Having manifested an ego just before being defeated, he remains in this form for mere moments before an unfortunate encounter with Oswald the Distorted Clown literally fractures him back into childhood. Again, he enters the library. This time appearing as stone cherubs, the librarians make short work of him, only for him to transform yet again. A collective stone angel floats above them all. Beams of pure anguish lance from the hole in his chest, but yet again it is defeated and removed from the story. Except by now, we know that never seems to happen to Philip. He doesn't get his ending, and his fractured persona manages to escape with just one remaining cherub, which reforms into a nightmarish statue outside the library. Encountered and recruited by Argalia, this is the Philip who later appears alongside the ensemble when they storm the library. Over and over again, he's defeated. The library cheats, and it's impossible for anyone to truly beat it. I'll leave Philip's story here for now, but rest assured, he's far from done. He still has 2 more forms that he takes during the last section of the game. Why does he take so many different forms? Let's start with who Philip was. There's not much to talk about Philip's first incarnation. He sure is a guy in a drab work button-up with a sword. I think it does a lot to sell him as no one special, as a man who you wouldn't give a second glance. Indeed, he's so unremarkable that we don't even get a key page of this version of Philip, since he escapes before he can die. Philip as a character seems to be an everyman, much like Roland is, and that similarity to Roland may actually be intentional. He's not good at much, though people do seem to say that he's great at making tea. They occasionally praise him, but he never feels like he's earned that praise. He's a bit of a wimp, a bit pathetic, a bit useless. He hasn't grown up yet. He hasn't matured. People give him a path to tread, and he walks it without question. He doesn't have an identity to call his own yet. Even Limbus confirms that many of Philip's achievements were attributed to him despite his friends deserving more of the credit. He's a third wheel to his office, an intern, something that the company was required to take on, but didn't want. Things change when Philip loses his second group of, I don't know if you'd call them friends. They spend too much time insulting his character and morals to call them friends. When he returns to the library, sees the Wedge office die, he manifests his ego. For those not familiar with the series, first off, why are you here? Welcome, I just can't comprehend how this video caught your attention. Ego is a direct manifestation of character's will and identity. This gives us a lot to dig into, but let's start with Philip's dialogue right before he manifests.
またこんなことに。今度は最後まで一緒に戦えると思ったのに、逃げろって言われて。僕はためらったんだ。先輩と師匠を置いて逃げれば弱虫に見えやしないか。みんな一緒にいてほしいんじゃないか。でも僕が下した判断は、みんなのためという名目で言うことを聞いた。でも今はその時じゃないってだけ。もちろん僕は 最後まで誰かのために動くから大丈夫。汚くて醜い利己的な人。その言葉の通り、一番利己的で危ないのは僕だった。これ以上誰かのためという言葉で飾り立てたくないんだ。すべてのことは僕のためだと。その何よりも僕のために、誰よりも悲しんでいる僕のために。
Philip is unformed, and that's where we want to begin with this ego. The ego, later dubbed wax and pinions in Limbus, is entirely composed of fire and wax. Like Philip, it's melting the hotter it burns. The power is too much for it to keep its shape, and more than that, the melting wax represents Philip's own tears. In manifesting it, he's recognizing his own lies to himself. He will never be someone special, and it's even in this moment of glory, his angelic rise, he is temporary. He's a coward because he ran, but it's running that gives him his identity. That inner turmoil of leaving his friends to die is what allowed him to manifest it all. He couldn't have done this without their deaths, without the repeated event with the wedge. He needs time to internalize. The sadness, the guilt he feels from the deaths he's caused will not leave him, but he can carry that forward as his strength. Philip always claimed to run because his friends wanted him to live on. He was always surviving because it was their wish. But did he ever look back? Which instinct was more powerful, the fear or the desire to honor their wishes? How has he hidden his emotions? Was he ever being true to himself? Or were they all lies? Philip cries for the person he cannot be, but he's at least no longer lying to himself. He turns towards the librarians, manifesting the ego and resolving himself, at last, not to run away. He will continue to pick himself up over and over until he either dies or becomes the person he claimed to be. The design of Wax and Pinions is only half formed. One wing, half of his armor. Nothing solid. And as the fight goes on, Philip's form continues to heat up, leading to more rivulets melting off him, more tears burning him away. We can see where it's damaging itself, as if confirming that this isn't healthy. He's actualizing, allowing his emotions to guide him, and they're burning his wings as he tries to fly. Ego are frequently shown to take a massive toll on their users, and I like that this is no exception. It's also a sign that he could have become much more with time, if it wasn't for Oswald. The next form we see comes from his interactions with Oswald as he's forcibly evacuated via a life or death teleport placed on him discreetly by the Wedge office. Oswald pushes at Philip's shaky footing, forcing him back towards Distortion. When Philip distorts, he turns into these cherubs. Direct references to hear, see, speak no evil, they reference Philip cutting himself off from the thoughts that led him to his ego to begin with. Overwhelmed by his own self-loathing, he regresses back to childhood. These cherubs are fractured, scattered thoughts he has, almost completely unrecognizable from the man they once were. The fracturing makes them useless, barely able to function. This can't be how we're supposed to exist. But we're not done yet. When he reappears in the library once more, the individual crying children are easy to dispatch. None of them put up that much of a fight, but it's what happens when they're defeated that becomes interesting. By this point, Philip's sadness for himself and his own incompetence is all that he really has left. When we wrench open his eyes, ears, forcing him to speak, he rages and those tears return, in angelic form. This is his fourth main form, and it's this one that serves as the true boss for this fight. Interestingly, the new angel lacks ears, mouth, and eyes, serving instead as a mostly featureless statue. Sure, it has eye holes, but that's all they are. Holes. There's another gigantic hole in the chest. As the fight goes on, blood gushes from it, and we start to see the form breaking down further. Philip is no longer molten, waxen, or otherwise. He's hardened into a shell, something that won't let others in, lest they hurt him even more. He's shut himself off from the lessons he learned. He doesn't want to hear any of it. He doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to think. The pain of what he went through was too soon, and it left a mark on his heart, a mark he carved right out of his chest. He carries his regrets with him. His attacks manifest the degraded shapes of Yuna and Salvador. His fire, his emotions are gone, but his thoughts continue to multiply. The number of cherubs increases each time this big angel is killed, but after each defeat, they begin to decrease again. The angel's size diminishes. Eventually, all that's left is one single cherub that ultimately escapes the library, leaving most of Philip's memories and emotions behind in an unstable book. I want to highlight something about Philip's arc here, because we finally learn that just before she died, Philip asked Yuna out. She didn't turn him down, just told him she needed time to think about it. Yuna is 10 years older than Philip, an age difference that would make most people pause. But, young as he is, Philip's emotions eat at him. She didn't say no, but she might as well have. That was his first time to open his heart to anyone. He was in a deeply emotional state when his office was slain, leading to the ego we saw. He was, in a word, unstable. Even the book's name is doing some storytelling, and I appreciate that. Philip changes drastically after his latest escape. Now a simple stone statue, he's long since shed his wings. The hole in his chest is patched over by the suit given to all Reverb ensemble members. He gains a mouth once more, formed by the hands of the cherub that he consists of. This Philip actually bears some resemblance to the Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth, and it's as we get closer that some of the nightmare fuel begins to show. Philip is no longer a single individual, but a mashed together hodgepodge of the thoughts that final cherub had. As it's always an unspeaking child, this means he consists entirely of the indifference that child had. You can see these designs in his sprites, mostly through the folded together appearance he has. On his... look, I guess this is a face? You can even see the little hands reaching out to form his mouth. Something is clearly seriously wrong with this version of Philip, and it's only when Malkuth talks to him in the ensemble reception that we find out what. By this point, I want to compare Philip's current form with Roland's form when he has the mask on. These two are meant to be dead ringers for each other, as Philip directly hints at Roland's possible fate before we see him turn. Roland is also pathetic when we encounter him, but just like Philip, there's a lot of untapped power he's not using. Both of them have a void where their hearts once were. In Philip's case, that became literal. When he escaped from the library, most of what he was carved out. All that he had left were the shreds of identity and emotion he escaped with. He talks to Malkuth about this, saying he doesn't care, but that's not true, as his next form shows. During Malkuth's fight with him, we can ignite Philip. The emotions he claims to not care about are still there, under the surface. His sadness has been replaced by a deeply roiling wrath that has become very obvious once heated sufficiently. Since he cut himself off from the identity that helped him form his ego, he has to make a new one. That one wing is still there, vicious and fiery as ever, but it's just a cinder now. He can manifest it as a remnant of itself, and that's all. His weapon of choice, some strange staff or cane, makes us think of him almost as a devil, or a fallen angel. It's only when overheated that he reclaims that glory. But it always comes too late. He usually only gets a turn or two in this form before we smash him down again. This is not his story to succeed, not his place to win. This is the library's, and as we established, you can't win against it. That's not Philip's final form, though. When Angela decides to release all of the light, he returns once more, along with the rest of the ensemble members. Here, he appears at his most grossly incandescent. Remaining as the one-winged angel, he regained much of the glory of his original ego, including the orb that was once in the ego's shoulder. now held in one hand. I love this form. It's a glorious combination of all of Philip's previous versions in one place. The general layout still matches the original ego, but the darkened or maybe eclipsed orb gives a sense of something genuinely wrong with Philip. On top of that, we can see he never regained the wax from his original form, leaving his limbs shattered from all of the stress he's been placed under. Even so, he remains standing, molten to the core. Under the light's influence, he now glows with heat born straight from his heart. He's no longer empty, merely undirected. Who knows what he'll do? Philip's designs are amazing to me. They use visual storytelling in a way that reflects his rise and fall over the course of the game, including an honest-to-God devil form where he's completely given up on himself. It's such a great way to tell players things about the character without directly spelling it out. I genuinely felt bad every time we fought him because it feels like he's always on the verge of realizing himself, only to be smashed back down. Manifest ego? Nope. Achieving a final boss form? Nope. Reawaken his sense of self? Nope. Finally become his ultra distortion? Nope. Philip is not a villain, he's a victim, and his transformations reflect his own uncertainty. He doesn't know what he wants because what he wants keeps changing. I really hope to see another character like Philip in the future, where we can visually see the character arc's progress. We can only hope that this level of storytelling continues.